Hello and welcome to another Demis Hellen tutorial. We are taking a look at kick and bass and how important they are to work together. So in the past we have covered using EQ, we have covered using compression, side chaining, and they're basically their pros, because that's what my videos are about, like how you can use them. A question I get asked a lot is if you was to just use sidechain on your kick drum, on your bass line, sorry, coming from your kick drum, how is that any different from cutting the frequencies in that area? So if the kick drum is operating here at 80 Hz and your bass is also operating at 80 Hz, give it a cut and base it on the track, so how many decibels it needs, and that cuts out that frequency, which is just basically a volume dip on that frequency area. And whereas a side chain will dip the whole volume of everything, so from low to high, whereas this is cutting out a specific frequency to enable the kick to hit and let the bass breathe in between, instead of them clashing all the time and creating phase issues and all other nasties, and you get all your headroom messed up. So that's still needs to be done. You can't just use sidechain, because all you're doing is ducking the overall frequencies, and essentially you're just making your mix muddy still, but a little bit quieter. So that is the reason for that. I'm just going to disable that. Alright, so what we have here is a psytrance bass line, made in massive, just using the envelopes and a saw wave. And you can see they're just a bit shorter than the beats, just to make sure they're nice and stabby. And then we have a kick drum from kick 2 here, which is the initialized preset. And it's very loud, warm, round, flabby, and we don't want that. So let's just listen to them together. And the two main things that pop out is it's too long, it's too flabby, and also it's not pitched correctly. So let's take a note at where the bass is. So we're on G. G1 to be precise. Now if we go back to the kick drum, we are going to create a nice short kick drum, and I'm just going to shorten it down. It's probably going to be somewhere in the 100 to 150 milliseconds range, where this kick is going to be perfect to fit in these gaps without overlapping onto this. So let's have a listen. Let's just slow this length down. So we'll just leave it between 100 and 150 at 125 milliseconds or thereabouts. And I'm just going to turn off the distortion, the drive for now. Just turn off the EQ. Okay, and the problem is the amp. So I'm just going to remove all these nodes. Okay, so we have a 124 milliseconds, so I'm just going to leave it there for now. And as you can hear already, it's sitting nicely, like without like getting on top of that bass line too much. There is a little bit of wub in there still. I can still hear the sub coming through. Let's just disable these as well. And what we're going to do is we're going to tune this now. So with it being on G, let's just keep that on C. Let's just mess around and see what we can do here. Okay, so I'm going to take this to G. I'm just trying to find, I think that's going to be the best location. So we're getting a bit of click out of it. And then I'm going to pitch this up to a G. And then Okay, so we're getting somewhere now. You can hear that we've created a very short length, but then we've beefed it up by just pitching it right, and even just slightly moving these to the left and right. It's changing how the transient is. So its current location, there's a bit of snap, but if I take it more to the right, you're going to get more snap. So you can see what I mean there. So let's have a bit more snap. And then we can make it go really low by dropping that another octave. But that's not what we want. We want something really snappy and punchy. Okay, and then we've got the option to kind of control how this waveform goes. So like if I make here, you can see I can chop these frequencies down. Let's just make another node. So you can control certain areas. So if there's a bit of boxiness here, you can control it. So let's just create that into a V. Let's just listen to this. So you can see we can remove some of that sub, make it really tight. And there's your boxiness. And they're the bits that you'd cut out on EQ. So let's just show you on the EQ here on the kick drum. So I'm just going to type in Pro Q3. Just bring Pro Q3 up. And we can see the fundamentals. Okay, so that's our fundamental there. I'm just going to disable that. We don't want it to actually do anything. But your boxiness is probably going to be around... It's going to be around this area. So if we go back and just raise this, and then go back here, you can see how the waveform's changed here. Especially if we just freeze it. So you can see there's like a steady curve down here to this like kind of dip. And if we go back to kick here, drop the volume, and go back, you can see there's an obvious dip now, so we've removed that boxy area. This bit's part of the click, so let's just have a listen to this and see what's going on. So it's very boxy as well. So we have the option to remove that using either some more points on here, or we can use the EQ just to remove it later on. And I'm going to use the EQ in this instance. So just again, we've just removed a little bit of that by about 5 decibels. And we've got a very nice solid kick there. We've got some click using the second node here to determine how much click there is and how tightly packed those frequencies are. And then we've used the amp to cut out this section here, and you can see there that it's made a dip and it gets louder again. And just to control the back end of that, we can obviously make it louder, or we can make it go flatter. Let's have a bit of a round end there. So now we've got this nice sounding kick that's not overlapping. So if we was to now, it's going to change the settings dramatically, but if we remember that it's at 124 milliseconds, if I just simply add 100 up to 200 here, you've got flab back, and you could control it, you could bring it down using the amp and make it shorter, but they're starting to overlap, and if you want that really tight punchy feeling, we have this option, and then using EQ and compression to make it sound a little bit bigger. So let's add a bit of compression onto this so you can get the idea of how it sounds. So we want a slow attack to let that transient come through. Then we're going to have a fairly quick release. We're going to stick it on classic, and we're going to have a 4:1 ratio. We'll keep it there. So let's have a listen. can hear that emphasises the body a little bit more there if we bypass it. It helps that transient to come through, but it also just adds a little bit more bottom end onto the body. And then simply just going into the EQ here, we can add some EQ boost. I'm just going to turn the volume down on the EQ here by about 5 decibels. Can add a bit of low end bass in there. I'm just going to drag this up to cut the bottom frequencies out. So we've got a nice sounding kick drum now. It's very short. This is an extreme demo, so you can see. But you can see how it's going to work. It sounds quite tight and fresh. It doesn't sound like anything's clashing at all, even if you do that. And then it's all down to taste from there. So that's controlling the kick drum and its length and pitch using kick. Now you can do the same. You can find a kick drum, work its pitch out using some analyzers, and it'll tell you that it's in G or D or whatever. Just find the kick, tune the kick however you want, and then you can use the ADSR filters built in. So like in battery, for example, you can use the ASDR to shorten the kick down and get the length right, and then boost the body. You just don't have the overall control like on kick 2, where you're actually changing the waveform and doing all that sort of thing with the pitch. You just have the amp controls, but you can still do some pretty simple stuff and get it sounding okay, especially when you've already got a psytrance kick and you just want to shape it a little bit. So you can do that, but kick 2 gives you more overall volume. So we have them working together nicely in terms of length. What we need to do now is look at their areas of frequency. So if we use Pro Q again on the bass, and here on Pro Q, we need to have the kick as well. Okay, so I've boosted here the kick. It's not exactly the fundamental, but that's where the body sounds the best to me. So 31 Hertz, and let's have a look. So let's have 31 Hertz. So you can hear that, especially on headphones, there is conflict. Now if I just turn this down a few dB, so it's below the threshold, you can hear it gets a lot more clearer and crisper. That kick drum has some room. You can almost hear that the bass gets more power, gets more weight, gets more power, weight. Okay, and I'm just going to roll off that low end to stop any of those the below 20 Hertz frequencies. And then we have just our tools to go in and shape, so we can shape the sound. If we don't like that sound, or we don't like that bit, and we just want to cut a bit out there. And I'm just going to gently roll off this, just do a 6 dB roll off. Straight away we've done our sound shaping, so we've done this bit before here. As you can see, all these parts where we've boosted the kick and we've cut the bass in the same frequency, and then we've done a cut on the boxiness, and we didn't have to do a cut here because we already did it in kick 2. So let's have a listen to the kick without these EQ marks on. So it doesn't sound too good. There's no weight on the bottom end because it's a very short kick, and that boxiness bit there is absolutely and truly awful. And that just gives you that nice subtle kick. You can obviously blend that back in a bit more. I've cut it fairly drastically and just quickly, ad hocly to demonstrate it to you. But you can remove more as an example. hear that boxiness. So we'll just put it back to where it was. We've rolled the bottom end off to clear the headroom to make sure there's no frequencies just flabbing around in the bottom that you can't hear. Give it a little bit of warmth. And then same with the bass, we've cut in that area, dropped the lows to stop the clashing, and then I've just tailored that top end and rolled off the highs very gently with this 6 dB. Let's listen to that before. Sounds much tighter, and it takes the emphasis off the top end of that bass, so you can then focus on your other parts of the track, the hats and the synths, to take up that space. Yes, so there you go. That is the kick and bass sidechain, kick and bass tutorial. I'm just thinking about the sidechain on there as well, and I was using Kickstart just to demonstrate the dipping. So let's have a look just before we finish this tutorial. We'll go there and go here. So I have disabled these, and this is what it sounds like. So as you can see, it's just dipping the overall volume of the bass. It's not dipping just that frequency area. And that's the question I always get asked. So get rid of that frequency area. And then when you boost the kick, it keeps it all in check, nice and tight, and then you can control how much you want. You don't even have to have any on. You could just have a little bit, and I've obviously got sub-bass side chain, so it's quite a heavy side chaining. I'd have it about there. So make sure you cut those frequencies there when you're boosting the bass to make sure they can both work with each other. I'm not saying just cut them entirely, just do it to the sound of the track. So that is the end of the tutorial. So if you enjoyed this tutorial, let me know in the comments. I reply to everybody every time I upload a video. We are in the March Marathon where I'm uploading every single day, so check that playlist out. I'll put it at the end of the video. And also, if you really did like the video, hit the like button to help it get shared with other creative artists like yourselves, because it's you guys that are really spreading the word. And finally, if you haven't already, subscribe and hit the bell icon, because I upload twice a week when it's not the March Marathon. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.